Hey everybody, something a little different today. I got a game table, my first one ever. And I'm going to put it together on camera, or at least show you some snippets of me putting it together. So this will be a sweatier, more haggard looking mic than normal, although I'm always kind of a little sweaty and haggard, right? But as for the actual content of the video, I wanted to talk through kind of my process as the main person reviewing games for One Stop Co-op Shop, talk through how I decide which games to cover and which games not to cover, what my filming process looks like. And I'm also going to talk a bit about kind of ethics and my values when it comes to creating content. Hopefully some of that is interesting. If not, feel free to skip this and go to our next playthrough or review. And yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully this thing doesn't kill me. So the first thing I want to talk about is why we cover some games. How do we get some games on the channel and others not? And I'm just focusing on my own content here. Steve and Colin and Barrett and Jason and Peter, they all have kind of their own way of doing things. So first of all, a lot of the games I cover are from me reaching out, from me emailing a publisher, talking to somebody, getting a friend of a friend to give me an email address. Because our channel is doing well, but we're not shut up and sit down. We're not the Dice Tower. We only cover co-op and solo games. We've kind of made ourselves pretty niche. So a lot of publishers haven't even heard of us, or they don't really think of us first when they're trying to find people to cover their stuff. But we do also get a lot of emails and Facebook messages and stuff from publishers who want us to cover their games. And for both me seeking out a game and them reaching out to us, the first thing I always do is I want to see a rule book, even if it's a dirty draft of a rule book, which is what a lot of Kickstarter games have at that point. And I want to make sure that the game is something that I think I might enjoy. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If I only ask for games that I think I'm going to enjoy, am I ever going to have any negative reviews? And the honest answer is that I'll have fewer of them. But this is something I'm doing as a side gig. I put in 20 to 30 hours a week on this, plus my full-time job, and we don't get paid very much. Patreon and YouTube ads are amazing, but that's about all we're getting. So I'm doing this because I'm having fun, because I like playing the games I'm playing, because I like helping people make decisions about their games. So if I think a game is totally not to my taste, I just will have a terrible time with it. I don't want to play it the 5 to 10 times I try to play every game I review minimum, then I'm not going to ask for it. I'm not going to accept it. And that doesn't mean I won't have a negative review. I'll often read rulebooks, think a game sounds great, and then it's not so much, at least for me in practice. But yeah, I always start out with that rulebook, making sure the game looks good to me. Now, some of this video is going to be about bias and transparency in reviewing, and this is, I think, the first area where there's some bias, and not in that I like games more when I get a review copy, but really it's just about the access. I need to think about the fact that if one company sends me a game and the other one doesn't, with the limited time I have, with all the games I'm already trying to cover, one game's going to get seen and the other isn't. So the fact that some people send me games means their game makes it to the channel. I feel like obligated generally to cover it. So I think that honestly for me is the biggest effect of accepting review copies, just the fact that your game gets seen and another one might never make it to the channel. Now my rules are slightly different for crowdfunding game, Kickstarters, and GameFound and that kind of thing. Because I'm a designer myself, with Peter, we've Kickstarted games. We have more coming to Kickstarter in the future. And I know how much one negative video can totally tank a game. And the thing is, my tastes are just one person's taste. So I don't want to be the person who like ruins a Kickstarter. So with Kickstarters and GameFound, if I really don't like a game, I'll usually give the designer feedback, ask if they want to change anything, and I might say that I don't want to review the game anymore and I'll send the prototype on to somebody else. Because just to be honest, I don't want to be the person that ruins somebody's dream for their game, and it might change in development anyway, so me saying it's good or bad now might not apply. And that brings us to a contentious topic for anybody who's reviewing board games, which is bias and getting review copies, getting paid for your content. Now, for me personally, I don't ever want to get paid for the videos I make. We do get a lot of emails saying, hey, we'll pay you to cover this game, we'll pay you to cover that game, and we always say no. Not that I judge people who don't say no. Like I said, I'm putting in so many hours every week for this with not much to show for it financially. So if somebody else wants to actually try to make a living at this and like let that be their main job, then sure, get paid. That's up to them. And that brings me to the table, because the company that I got this from, I think it's BBO Poker, I'll have the link in the video description, they initially emailed us and offered to send a table totally free. And I was like, no, I don't want to have to like review your table. I don't want a free table from you. That felt like a little bit too much to me. And then they offered a partnership program where we would endorse the table and be like, hey, buy this table. And we would have a link in the videos and we would get money for each person that bought that table. And I said no to that too, because I didn't want to be seen as endorsing a certain product. I don't mind having the table on the video. You're clearly seeing the table right now, but I paid money for this table. What they did do is they gave me a discount if I said I would have a link in the videos for where the table would be. And I think that's fair. I'm not endorsing the table. I don't know if it's a good table. This is the first table I've ever had. And so far all I can say is that it's wood and it's heavy and it's hurting my body to put it together. But I mean, it seems to be a table. It seems like games will fit on it. So, you know, feel free to check it out if you want. But yes, I'm not calling this an endorsement or a review. This is a table. And some people might say that's still too much. The fact that I got a small discount, it was fairly small, on this very expensive table because I put a link in the video, is that too much? Is that still being biased? Then I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe getting review copies invites bias. But I do think getting a game for free can kind of skew your image of it, especially when it's a really expensive game. But I also think you can have bias going the other way. If you spend a ton of money on a game, we see this a lot with Kickstarter, you want to like the game. You have a psychological bias to feel like you didn't waste your money, to not have that cognitive dissonance of you feeling like you made a terrible decision. And sorry, I just realized that the camera lost me for a lot of that. So I personally don't really subscribe to the idea that like getting review copies is going to somehow make you like this totally unreliable and biased reviewer. I think that's just kind of like giving access to the game. Although, like I said earlier, it does mean the game gets on your channel or in your content, which does have an effect. But I think it swings both ways and can change from game to game. And that's why my big thing is transparency. I try to say in every video whether I got a review copy or not. I try to say whether I have a relationship with the designer or the publisher, whether I pitch games to them, whether I talk to them on Facebook. I think I'm capable of reviewing a game's mechanics and experience apart from that stuff fairly objectively, but I want the viewers to know about it so that they can make their own calls and their own choices. I really don't like the idea of you hiding that stuff or people thinking that it's a review and finding out later that it's paid for. Like, that bugs me. But as long as you say what you're doing, as long as you're transparent, I personally have no problem with it. That's just where I stand. Now, in terms of how I actually cover a game, well, first I read the rule book. I do like learning from rules. I pretty much don't watch other content creators if I can help it, partially because I never want to like see their opinion on a game and have it sway mine. I want to have like kind of my honest reaction to things. I usually go on BGG or ask the publishers or designers about rules questions. I'll check like the most common forums and make sure there's not some common mistake I'm missing. And then, as I said, I'll play a game at least 5 to 10 times. I try to do it more, but for some of the bigger, longer games, that can be tough. I do have a really tight schedule. I'm usually covering 2 games a week, Jesus, plus doing the podcast. And I try to play them solo and co-op when they offer both modes, or even competitive, even though I'm not covering that, just to kind of have an idea of how it goes. So a lot of that heavy lifting comes to my kids, my wife. They are my game partners a lot of the time. And then, of course, Peter, my design partner and podcast co-host. I go over to his house and play with him and our friend Jerry quite often. So that's generally where I'm playing games. So my most common player counts, by the way, are solo, 2-player, and 3-player. Games that have 4-player player counts, I often won't play it that way unless it's on TTS, which is another place that I play a lot of games. All right, with that, I am done. We'll switch to handheld here, so sorry for the shakiness. This is the table. It's very large. I definitely got that looking good. Our logo. Cool. Yeah, the room is not nearly as nice. The carpet is not nearly as nice as the new table. And on that topic, I think I can show you how I do my filming. So I've got like kind of a standard, I don't know, I guess microphone stand. And then at the top, I've got this telescoping arm. Just got this on Amazon. It allows me to move up and down to get different overhead shots. And you see it telescopes out. And I'm filming using an iPhone, and this is kind of a 2-part thing. I got this adapter that lets like the end of the stand adapt into this cell phone holder. So that lets me kind of do the overhead shots for the games. And as for the sound, this is the thing that's changed the most. And by the way, I just realized that apparently I had the sound on the wrong settings. So you might have switched to cell phone audio for a little bit. Sorry if it sounded terrible. Yeah, so I record the sound separately. This is an H4n Pro recorder, and I have it plugged in. We're going to switch to voiceover to this headset I bought. Colin uses a headset too. He talked about how great his was. I think it's great too. The biggest thing is that it's unidirectional. It only records right by my mouth. So unlike my previous recordings, I don't have to wait until like 9:30 at night when my kids are asleep and my wife is doing something else. I can now sometimes, it doesn't happen too often, record during the day. And my editing software is all Adobe. I use Audition to balance and do some effects on the audio, like taking out pops and stuff. And then I edit in Premiere Pro. So hope watching me build a table and seeing the final product was fun. If you have any questions or comments on any of the things I talked about or our policies, at least my policies, I'd love to hear about them. You can talk on Discord or in the comments. And later today or tonight, I'm going to record the first playthrough on this bad boy, my solo variant of Tyrants of the Underdark. So look forward to that in a few days on the channel. Good gaming, everyone, and I'll see you at the next stop.